if you let me go into history, you can find the writings, these particular writings, on the internet or at a published library. Actually, the original writings at the Bodleian Library in Oxford, England. They have the original writings, which are called In Sacram Beati Ionis Apostoli and Evangelistati Apocalyptine Commentari, which means that this is the sacred sacrament, okay, of what? Of the apostolic and evangelistic apocalypse commentary. The last word was commentary. This is nothing more. As a matter of fact, this fact will be idolized by C.I. Scofield in his Scofield Reference Bible. It is the big thing of the commentary on Scripture being just as credible as Scripture. See? The only thing the three Jesuit priests did was comment in the Catholic, heathenistic, unholy Roman Empire view of the coming of the Son of Man and those events coming around it, or the events surrounding that coming of the Son of Man. But see, brothers and sisters, we need to break away from the way that we have been taught. And like I always tell folk, is that these people didn't bring us over here to find God. This is a journey that is going to take some effort to find. Because whatever they have put before us has never, ever been any good. I don't understand how we take it or think that the religion and the thought process behind that religion, how we think that that is any good. So let's go back to the rapture, like I said, the history, and let us understand that this doctrine was invented, okay? In I'm going to take that back, somewhere in the 1800s, a librarian for the Archbishop of Canterbury. This person's name was S.R. Maitland, and you may Google that name and find out his place in history. But he was appointed to be the keeper of the manuscripts at the palace in London, England. And he came across Francisco Ribera's futurist rapture teaching. And he had it published for the sake of interest. And that happened in 1826, 1829, and 1830. And then the Oxford tracts on this situation sprung up. Now, what gave the movement or the doctrine the spillover, as you will, or if you will, into the Protestant churches? Because right now, up until this point, to roughly 1800, 1815, 16, 17, 1820, the rapture doctrine is basically hidden within the Catholic Church, almost like a germinating seed, waiting to take root during the winter time, and just waiting for the summer and the continuous sun and the warmth of the earth for it to germinate and bring forth. And it was seen that this is the same thing that would happen with the rapture doctrine, that it laid low within the Catholic Church for so long until someone happened to come along and find Francisco Ribera's writings and publish the entire book. That doctrine came into the hands of two gentlemen. The first gentleman is a Scottish minister named Edward Irving. And Edward Irving is one of the founding fathers, if you will, or one of the people that are responsible today for the worldwide Pentecostal movement, the worldwide spiritualist movement, They are the founders of the mega churches. The mega churches are patterned after these gentlemen who started with the teachings. Okay? What we want to talk about is Edward Irving and how he brought this doctrine, okay, into play. He took hold of the doctrine and published this doctrine and spread it across Scotland. See? Now we have this influence, see, going from the Edward Irving Society, which Edward Irving had a very large society. He was a member of a congregation that was very big. He wrote several volumes, and he was very, very influential in spreading this doctrine, which, as I said, he got a hold of the tract from a gentleman named Maitland. Now, as we go to a gentleman by the name of John Nelson Darby, and he was a member of the Plymouth Brethren, another premillennial society of Gentile white men, and I hate to use that term like that, but Gentiles, white men, who at the time were looking to take the movement or the worship of God to a higher spiritual level. This is the reason why these gentlemen come into play. The Edward Irvings, the John Nelson Darbys, the C.I. Schofields, the D.L. Moody's. See, these gentlemen helped found, okay, or helped at least keep the wave going for these doctrines to take root, and for us to doubt and for us to believe these things without seeking the history behind it. Again, John Nelson Darby was a leader of the Plymouth Brethren. He became also a follower or a believer in the printed works that Mr. Maitland, who was the librarian of the Archbishop of Canterbury, that he published the Jesuit priest Francisco de Bera's works. Once Edward Irving and John Nelson Darby got associated, got a whiff, got a taste of the futurist, rapturist doctrine that was created by the Jesuit priests, it spread like wildfire amongst them. And John Nelson Darby took it to another level. He was also aligned with two other gentlemen. See? And we're going to see how this train keeps this doctrine moving. And it's funny how this particular doctrine spread, cultivated, and took root and formed other branches of Christianity based on a doctrine that was conceived to counteract the Reformation movement. Let me say that again. This doctrine was purported by the Catholic Church in order to stop the bleeding that Martin Luther put on them when he exposed the Catholic Church and the papacy as the beast of Revelation and Daniel. There was another influential Jesuit priest who, along with Edward Irving, who along with John Nelson Darby, helped to bring this doctrine more life. It was a Jesuit priest by the name of Emmanuel Lacunza. He was a Jesuit priest from Chile. He wrote a book called The Coming of Messiah in Glory and Majesty, which you can see the prototype for such people like Tex Mars, for such people like Hal Lindsey in their books. You can see the kind of prototype in these people's writings from the 17 and 1800s. I remember my grandfather used to say, when I would ask him how he was doing, he would say that there is nothing new under the sun, and it's the same soup, just warmed over. And this is the same thing that we have today. This is the same soup. It's just being warmed over. And that's just the crux of the situation. The same soup, just being warmed over again and again. And I want to pause for one moment. I want to get back to the Jesuit priest, Mr. Lacunza. But see, up until this point, I want all the people that are watching this program right now to understand that the people that have a say, that have formed this particular doctrine, there was not one Hebrew Israelite present. There was not one so-called black person present. There was nobody there from our school of thought that had our interests at heart there to have any influence on the outcome of this doctrine. As with most things, we are left out of the loop, and we're left to fend for doctrines after the Gentile have already put their position on it. And what I'm saying is that we have to wrestle our history from the maniacal grip, Brother James, from the maniacal grip of the Gentile world system. Back to the Jesuit priest, Mr. Lacunza, and his book, The Coming of Messiah in Glory and Majesty. This particular book was later published in London. Now you've got London, and you've got this doctrine spreading now across the world. And then it hits the United States. And how did it hit the United States? I'm going to show you all how history records foolishness and expects us to believe it. And I'm going to show you how the Gentile system will take the words of absurdity and proclaim it to be true. In the year 1830, again in Scotland, a 15-year-old girl named Margaret MacDonald is giving credit for being a credible witness to the Rapture Doctrine. She is giving credit for having visions. Okay? She may claim that her visions were of the restoration of the apostles and prophets in the Catholic Apostolic Church. Although the modern day view of every believer being taken away in a rapture is different from all the thoughts that came before, there is little doubt to its error. Lacunza asserted that only those believers that partake of the sacrament of the Eucharist will be raptured. Hello, did you hear that? Did you hear that? I beg you, I challenge you to Google the Jesuit priest, his name again, Lacunza, Emmanuel Lacunza. Google him and see if this is not true.